In a remote general store at the edge of the Pacific Northwest wilderness, a starving homeless girl was about to be caught stealing food. What started as a desperate attempt to silence her hunger took a shocking turn when she came face to face with a man known only as the Shadow. Lily Winters wasn't your typical teenage runaway. For 3 years, she had spent her life bouncing between abusive foster homes and cold streets, known for her fierce determination to survive despite everything the world had taken from her. When she encountered Kade Sullivan moving silently through the store like a ghost, she had no idea she was forming an unexpected bond that would save them both. Lily reluctantly accepted his offer of temporary shelter that would lead to a profound journey of transformation neither could have imagined. What began as mere survival would become a mission to protect the wilderness itself. The mountain community would never be the same after the orphaned city girl became a guardian of the ancient forest, proving that the deepest wounds can sometimes lead to the most powerful healing. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Lily's hand trembled as she slipped the protein bar into her pocket. 3 days since her last real meal, and the gnawing emptiness had become a constant companion. Hammond's General Store wasn't her first choice. Too remote, too quiet, too likely the owner would notice every missing item. But desperation had driven her farther from town each day. The evening bus had deposited her at the highway junction, 2 miles back, the last stop before the route surrendered to the vast Pacific Northwest wilderness. "Finding everything you need, dear?" The voice startled Lily into nearly knocking over a display of local honey. The old woman behind the counter, silver-haired, weathered but sharp-eyed, hadn't been there moments before. Lily forced her face into what she hoped was a casual smile. "Just browsing," she managed, the protein bar feeling suddenly massive in her pocket. Her stomach betrayed her with an audible growl. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but assessment. "Browsing's fine, but stealing isn't. Empty your pockets, please." Something inside Lily crumbled. She'd been caught shoplifting before, but never when she was this desperate, this close to the edge. The memory of last night's park bench, the rain soaking through her thin jacket, the certainty that winter would kill her if something else didn't first, it all crashed down at once. "Go ahead and call the cops," Lily hissed, yanking the protein bar from her pocket and slapping it on the counter. "One more arrest won't matter." Instead of reaching for a phone, the woman sighed and pushed a stool toward Lily. "Sit. I'm Nell. Hammond. This has been my store for 43 years, which is plenty of time to recognize when someone's at the end of their rope." Lily remained standing, her body tense as a cornered animal. "I don't need your pity." "Good, because I don't offer pity," Nell replied evenly. "But I do offer soup to anyone who looks like they're about to collapse in my store. Bad for business. You understand." Before Lily could form a retort, Nell had disappeared into a back room, returning moments later with a steaming bowl. The aroma hit Lily like a physical force. Venison stew, rich and hearty. Her legs gave way then, depositing her onto the stool. "Eat," Nell commanded, sliding the bowl across the counter. Lily hesitated only a second before surrendering to hunger. Between spoonfuls, fragmented explanations tumbled out. Aging out. Of foster care 3 months ago, the promised transitional housing that never materialized, the shelter where someone stole her backpack with her last $40, the minimum wage job that let her go when she couldn't maintain proper hygiene. "19's too young to give up," Nell observed when Lily's spoon finally scraped the empty bowl. "But sometimes you need a fresh start somewhere unexpected." Lily snorted. "Yeah, well, fresh starts cost money." "Not always." A mysterious smile played at Nell's lips as the bell above the door jingled. The man who entered moved with such silent grace that Lily might not have noticed him if not for the bell. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a close-cropped dark beard threaded with silver. His eyes, the gray-green of forest shadows, took in the scene with unsettling thoroughness. "Kade," Nell greeted him warmly. "Right on time." He nodded once, placing a paper-wrapped package on the counter. 2 rabbits, 1 grouse. "Perfect. This is Lily." Nell gestured to her as though introducing an honored guest rather than a failed shoplifter. "She needs a place to stay." Cold panic flooded Lily's chest. The memory of her second foster home, the father's wandering hands, the mother who refused to believe, flashed unbidden. "I don't need anything," she snapped. Standing so quickly the stool clattered behind her. Kade's expression didn't change. "I live alone." "Kade has a cabin," Nell continued as though neither had spoken. "It's remote, needs work, getting too much for one person to maintain." "I'm not looking for a handyman." Kade's voice was deep, but quiet, almost unused. "And I'm not a charity case," Lily added, backing toward the door. "You're both impossible," Nell sighed. "Kade Sullivan, this girl has nowhere to go and winter's coming. Lily, this man has space to spare and could use an extra pair of hands. It's temporary. 1 week." She looked between them. Sometimes the answer to one person's problem is another person's problem. A memory surfaced, Lily's mother stroking her hair after a nightmare. "Sometimes the bravest thing is to accept help, Lily Flower." The thought came with a stab of pain. 3 years since the accident, and the wound still felt fresh. Kade studied Lily for a long moment, his assessment even more thorough than Nell's had been. 1 week, he finally said. "You'll need better shoes." The hiking boots Nell produced from a back room, returned but never worn, were only half. A size too big, manageable with an extra pair of socks. More concerning was the endless stretch of wilderness that swallowed the narrow trail leading away from the last outpost of civilization. "How much further?" Lily asked, adjusting her borrowed backpack. The morning had faded to afternoon, and each step sent fresh aches through muscles unprepared for this terrain. "We're halfway," Kade replied, the first words he'd spoken in over an hour. Lily bit back a groan. What little she owned now weighed like concrete blocks, the worn backpack from Nell containing a change of clothes, a water bottle, and some basic supplies. Kade carried 3 times as much with seemingly no effort, his movements fluid and perfectly adapted to the forest floor. "You do this hike regularly?" she managed, sweat stinging her eyes despite the cool autumn air. "Every few days." "When?" No further explanation came. Lily returned to silent suffering, memories providing unwelcome company. The social worker's sympathetic but empty promises. Her uncle's cold assessment that a teenager wasn't part of his retirement plan. The succession of foster homes where she was always too old, too damaged, too much. The final group home where she counted days until her 18th birthday brought not freedom, but abandonment. They crested a steep ridge as sunset painted the mountains gold and crimson. Below, nestled in a small clearing beside a rushing stream, stood a cabin that seemed to grow from the forest itself. Sturdy logs, a metal roof gone green with age, smoke curling from a stone chimney. "Home," Kade said, the word sounding foreign in his mouth. The final descent took another 20 minutes, Lily's legs trembling with exhaustion by the time they reached the clearing. Up close, the cabin revealed clever craftsmanship, dovetailed corners, a covered porch, windows that would catch both morning and afternoon light. Inside was simpler than she'd imagined, but meticulously organized. A main room with a wood stove, handmade furniture, shelves lined with books and jars of preserved food. A small kitchen area with a pump for water, a propane stove. No electricity, no phone, no internet. "Bathroom?" Lily asked weakly. Kade pointed through the rear window to a small outbuilding. "Outhouse, solar shower in summer." The crushing, reality of what she'd agreed to settled over Lily. No running water, no heat besides the wood stove, no connection to the outside world. "Loft is yours," Kade said, pointing to a ladder leading to a small space beneath the peaked roof. "I'll be in the lean-to out back." "You're giving me your bed?" Suspicion crept into Lily's voice. "Easier than building another." He removed a few items from a trunk at the foot of the ladder, then took a lantern from a hook. "There's stew. Eat if you're hungry." Without another word, he ducked through the door, leaving Lily alone in the cabin that suddenly felt both impossibly isolated and strangely secure. Later, belly full but mind racing, Lily curled beneath the surprisingly soft blankets in the loft. Through the small window, a slice of star-filled sky reminded her how far she'd come from urban streetlights and sirens. The silence was absolute, except for the gentle popping of the wood stove and distant owl calls. "What the hell am I doing here?" she wondered, exhaustion finally pulling her toward unconsciousness. "I've either found sanctuary or walked willingly into a nightmare." As sleep claimed her, Lily couldn't decide which possibility terrified her more. Morning came as a shock of golden light through the loft window. For one disoriented moment, Lily forgot where she was. The unfamiliar smell of wood smoke and pine, needles pulling her from dreams of concrete and traffic. Reality crashed back as she sat up. The cabin, the wilderness, the taciturn stranger who'd offered her temporary sanctuary. Below, she could hear Kade moving with that unnerving quietness, the barest creak of floorboards betraying his presence. Stiff from yesterday's hike, Lily descended the ladder to find him already dressed and preparing to leave, a canvas bag slung over his shoulder. "Morning," she offered, her voice rough with sleep. Kade nodded once. "Water needs fetching, firewood needs splitting, food in the pantry." He pointed to each location with economical movements. "Back by sundown." Before Lily could form a question, he was gone, the door closing with barely a sound behind him. Left alone in the suddenly too quiet cabin, she surveyed her domain for the day with growing apprehension. Despite her exhaustion, she'd slept better than she had in months. No sirens, no drunken arguments, no fear of being robbed. But daylight brought new anxieties. The water bucket proved deceptively heavy when full, sloshing over her boots as she hauled it from the stream. 3 trips later, her shoulders ached, and she'd managed to fill only half the storage barrel. The fireplace, when it died down, refused her clumsy attempts at revival. After 20 minutes of increasingly desperate efforts with matches and kindling, she gave up, the cabin growing chillier by the hour. The outhouse presented its own unique horrors: the musty darkness, the buzzing flies, the leaf squares Kade had left instead of proper toilet paper. By midday, frustration had congealed into a familiar anger. This was ridiculous. People didn't live like this anymore. There was nothing romantic about freezing and wiping your ass with leaves. Hunger eventually drove her to investigate the pantry. Jars of preserved fruits and vegetables lined the shelves, alongside dried meat and herbs. Hanging in careful bundles, a sack of potatoes, some onions, a basket of eggs. In a fit of determined self-sufficiency, Lily decided to prove she wasn't completely useless. An hour later, smoke filled the cabin, the acrid smell of burnt potatoes hanging in the air. The cast-iron pan, which she'd placed directly in the flames of her finally successful fire, had cracked from the heat. Half the potatoes were charred black while the others remained raw and hard. It was the eggs that truly broke her. 3 shattered on the floor when the handle of the pan proved hotter than expected. 2 more ruined in the burnt mess. Lily was scraping the disaster into a bucket when the door opened. Kade stood frozen. In the entrance, taking in the smoke, the ruined food, the cracked pan. Something shifted in his stoic expression. "That pan," he said, his voice tight, "was my grandfather's." "Well, maybe you should have told me how to use it properly before." "Disappearing all day?" Lily snapped, embarrassment fueling her defiance. common sense says, cast iron. I don't have your common sense. The words exploded from her. I don't know how to fetch water or split wood or cook on a fire because I grew up in apartments with plumbing and electricity and microwaves. I'm sorry about your precious pan, but I never asked to be here. Kade's jaw tightened. Nell said you were desperate. Not desperate enough to be treated like an idiot. Lily threw the rag she'd been using onto the table. I'll find my own way back to town. It's 15 miles through wilderness. You'll be lost within an hour. Watch me. She grabbed her thin jacket, the only thing truly hers besides the clothes on her back, and pushed past him into the afternoon light. Pride carried her down the path and into the trees, anger keeping her warm despite the autumn chill. She'd survived foster homes and shelters and sleeping rough. She'd find the road eventually, hitchhike back to civilization. Anywhere was better than being silently judged by a man who'd forgotten how to talk to people. The forest had other ideas. What had seemed like a clear path soon disappeared among identical-looking trees. The afternoon light filtered differently here, shadows shifting in unfamiliar patterns. After an hour of walking with growing unease, Lily was forced to admit a horrible truth. She had no idea which direction led to the road or even back to the cabin. The first flutter of panic came when she tried to climb a ridge for a better view, only to slip on loose shale and tumble painfully back down. The second came when she realized the sun was sinking toward the mountains, much faster than seemed possible. The third, more intense wave hit when a rustling in the underbrush startled her into backing against a tree, heart hammering against her ribs. Hello? The word emerged as a broken whisper, answered only by the indifferent murmur of wind through pine needles. Her breath came faster, the forest tilting around her. She'd experienced these episodes before, after her parents' death, during the worst foster home, the night she'd aged out with nowhere to go, but never with such consuming intensity. Here there were no walls to steady herself against, no passing strangers to ground her in reality, just wilderness, endless and indifferent as darkness approached. Lily slid down the trunk until she hit the forest floor, pulling her knees to her chest. Tears streamed silently down her face as she struggled to breathe, to think, to do anything, but feel the crushing weight of her own helplessness. Steady. The voice came so suddenly that Lily jerked in shock. Kade crouched beside her, materializing from the forest like a spirit. Breathe with me. In through nose, out through mouth. She tried to speak, but the words tangled in her constricted throat. Just breathe, he repeated, his own breathing deliberately slow and deep. For the first time, she noticed the gentleness in his eyes, at odds with his gruff demeanor. Gradually, her breathing slowed to match his. The forest stopped spinning. Twilight had deepened around them, but somehow his presence made the encroaching darkness less threatening. How did you find me? She finally managed. You left clear tracks. Was that the ghost of a smile? Like a bull through a china shop. I was trying to reach the road. You were heading deeper into the wilderness. Kade stood, offering a hand. Can you walk? Humiliation burned through her, but she took his hand anyway, her legs unsteady as she rose. I don't normally. Panic attacks happen to the strongest people, he said simply, surprising her with his recognition of what had happened. Especially in unfamiliar territory. They walked in silence for several minutes, Kade leading with unerring confidence despite the deepening dark. Lily noticed how he moved, each step placed with deliberate care, his body in constant dialogue, with the forest around them. Wait. His whisper was so faint she nearly missed it. Kade's hand touched her shoulder, gently halting her. 20 yards ahead, a doe and fawn stood in a small clearing, alert but unaware of their presence. Kade's breathing changed subtly, becoming so quiet and measured that Lily could no longer hear it. With infinitesimal slowness, he stepped forward, his movement so fluid it seemed part of the forest's natural rhythm. The deer's ears flicked but showed no alarm. Another step, then another. Kade was halfway to the clearing when the doe finally raised her head, looking directly at him, not in fear, but with a curious stillness. For a breathtaking moment, man and animal regarded each other across the divide of species. Then the doe nodded once, as if acknowledging an old acquaintance, before leading her fawn back into the shadows. "How did you do that?" Lily whispered when he returned to her side. "I didn't do anything," Kade said. "I became nothing. No threat, no desire, no separation." The answer made no sense and perfect sense simultaneously. They reached the cabin as true night fell, the windows glowing with the fire Kade must have built before coming to find her. Inside, the smoke had cleared, and the burnt mess was gone. Without a word, Kade moved to the pantry, returning with dried venison and preserved vegetables, which he began preparing with practiced efficiency. "I'm sorry," Lily said after a long silence, "about the pan," and storming off. Kade continued working, his back to her. "I'm sorry too," he finally said, the words coming with difficulty. "I forget what it's like to be new to all this." Later, as they ate the simple but satisfying stew, Kade spoke more than he had in the entire time since they'd met. "The agreement was 1 week," he said, setting down his bowl. "But 1 week isn't enough to learn what you'd need to survive out here." A pause. "You could stay longer. I could teach you, if you wanted." Lily studied him, this strange, solitary man who moved like shadow through the forest, who could commune with deer and track a panicked girl through wilderness. There was something compelling about his self-sufficiency, his absolute belonging in this place that terrified and fascinated her. "I'd like that," she said quietly. "To learn." Neither acknowledged the weight of this exchange, how it represented so much more than a simple arrangement, how it might, in time, transform them both in ways they couldn't yet imagine. "Again," Kade instructed, squatting beside Lily as she arranged the tinder nest of dry pine needles and shredded birch bark. 3 weeks into her stay, and fire starting remained her nemesis. Lily had mastered the water pump, learned to split logs with the maul, even successfully harvested mushrooms without poisoning them both. But creating fire from scratch continued to humble her. "I swear these matches are defective," she muttered, striking another against the box with controlled frustration. "It's not the match," Kade said, though without criticism. "It's the patience." Lily tried again, this time shielding the nascent flame from the October breeze with her body, feeding it oxygen with gentle breaths as Kade had demonstrated. The tinder caught, a wisp of smoke curling upward. Her heart quickened as she carefully placed thin cedar shavings onto the growing warmth. "Slowly," Kade cautioned. "Fire is like a newborn. Too much too soon will smother it." The flame grew, licking at the kindling. Lily added progressively larger sticks with deliberate movements until the fire burned on its own, bright and confident in the stone pit outside the cabin. "I did it!" The triumph in her voice surprised even her. Such a simple thing. Humans had been making fire for millennia. Yet the accomplishment filled her with unexpected pride. Kade's mouth twitched in what she'd come to recognize as his version of a smile. "Tomorrow we'll try flint and steel." "Deer," Kade said, crouching beside a set of prints pressed into the damp earth of the forest floor. "Doe, about 120 pounds, passed through early this morning." Lily knelt beside him, studying the heart-shaped impressions. "How can you tell it was a doe, or how much it weighed?" "Size and depth." His finger traced the outline without touching. Bucks leave wider, deeper prints. Weight you learn from experience." "But look here." He pointed to where the tracks veered suddenly. Something startled her. Lily followed his gaze to another, Much different set of prints intersecting the deer's path. Coyote. Kade nodded, something like approval in his eyes. Good. You're learning to see the stories written on the land. They followed the intertwined trails for nearly a mile, Kade teaching her to notice subtleties she would have overlooked just weeks ago. Broken twigs indicating direction, the freshness of droppings, feeding signs on low bushes. The forest was becoming a text she was slowly learning to read. There. Kade pointed to a thicket of wild blackberries, their leaves fading with the season. Breakfast. Lily's fingers were soon stained purple as they harvested the last berries of autumn, sweeter for the effort it took to find them. Kade showed her other edible treasures, late chanterelles hiding under fallen leaves, roots that could be ground into flour, an abandoned beehive with a small cache of honey. The forest provides, he told her, if you know how to ask. The thunderstorm arrived suddenly that evening, the sky darkening to premature night as lightning split the clouds. Rain hammered against the cabin roof with percussion intensity, wind howling through the surrounding pines. Trapped inside, they sat before the fire, the forced proximity creating an unusual intimacy. "Where did you learn all this?" Lily asked, watching Kade repair a snare with deft fingers. "Living off the land, I mean." Preparing and narrating. This story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. His hands paused momentarily. "My grandfather taught me the basics, but I studied wildlife biology before." A significant pause. "Before I came here." To hide? The question slipped out before she could reconsider its bluntness. The fire crackled in the silence that followed, shadows dancing across Kade's face, accentuating its angles and scars. "To heal," he finally answered. Lightning illuminated the cabin interior in stark white, followed by thunder that seemed to shake the very foundation. Some wounds don't close in cities. Lily thought of her own wounds, the jagged tear of her parents' death, the paper cuts of each subsequent rejection and disappointment. "I get that." "Your turn," Kade said, surprising her. Nell mentioned foster care. The simple acknowledgement of her past felt strangely validating. "My parents died when I was 16. Car accident." The familiar pain came, but duller now, weathered by time. "No other family wanted me. 3 foster homes in 2 years, each, worse than the last, aged out of the system with nowhere to go." "The system fails those who need it most," Kade observed with unexpected bitterness. Another flash of lightning revealed something haunted in his expression before darkness reclaimed it. "We should check the root cellar. Storms like this can cause flooding." The abrupt subject change told Lily she'd brushed against boundaries, not yet meant to be crossed. Nell's general store was busier than when Lily had first arrived. Hunting season had brought an influx of visitors to the area, their vehicles with out-of-state plates crowding the gravel parking lot. "Well, look who's still with us," Nell greeted them warmly. "Beginning to think our shadow had made you disappear. For good." Lily caught the nickname, filing it away as Kade handed Nell a list of supplies. The older woman's eyes widened slightly at its length. "Stocking up, I see. Smart. Weather Service is predicting an early winter." As Nell gathered their items, Lily noticed how the store's other patrons reacted to Kade's presence. Conversations quieted. Glances were exchanged. A man in hunting camouflage nodded respectfully from across the room while another whispered to his companion, who looked over with undisguised curiosity. "Your list will take a few minutes to fill," Nell told them. "Coffee's fresh if you want to warm up." Kade nodded and moved to a corner table, his back to the wall, eyes monitoring the room with habitual vigilance. Lily went to the restroom, a luxury compared to the outhouse, and paused when she heard Kade's name mentioned in the adjacent stockroom. "That's Sullivan, all right," a man's voice confirmed. "The shadow himself. Can't believe he's showing his face in town again." "And with a girl," a woman replied. After what happened to his family, I never thought. Hush, a third voice interrupted. Nell. That's not for gossiping. Just finish loading their order. When Lily returned, she found Kade exactly as she'd left him, apparently unaware or unconcerned about being the subject of speculation. But new questions burned in her mind. Family? What had happened? Ready? He asked as Nell approached with their supplies. Almost, Nell replied. Just need to know if you want the usual ammunition or... The store's door swung open, admitting a man whose entrance immediately changed the atmosphere. Tall, athletically built, with the confident stride of someone used to authority. His ranger-style jacket was expensive, his smile practiced as he surveyed the room. Nell Hammond, he called out genially. Just the woman I was hoping to see. Nell's expression cooled several degrees. Marcus, what brings you to my establishment? Supply run, Marcus answered, his gaze drifting to Kade and lingering with obvious recognition. Sullivan, been a while. Cade's acknowledgement was minimal, a slight nod, nothing more. And who's this? Marcus asked, turning his attention to Lily with an assessment that made her skin crawl. Just passing through, Kade interrupted before she could answer, standing abruptly. We need to get back before dark, Nell. The older woman nodded, completing their transaction with unusual efficiency. As they loaded their supplies into Cade's weathered pack, Lily felt Marcus watching them, his interest neither casual nor innocent. Outside, autumn's golden light was fading, the mountains casting long shadows across the valley. They'd walked nearly a mile when Lily spotted a truck parked at a Forest Service turnout, its driver making a show of checking a map. Something about the man's furtive glance as they passed triggered a warning sense she'd developed in foster care, the awareness of being watched, assessed, targeted. Kade, she said quietly. That man in the truck. He's one of the men who was with Marcus at the store. I know, Kade replied, his pace unchanging. We're being followed. Why? That, he said grimly, is what we need to find out. Their path home suddenly seemed fraught with unseen dangers as the wilderness, which had begun to feel like sanctuary, revealed its first signs of threat. The first snow came softly in the night, transforming the forest into an alien landscape. By morning, Lily woke to a strange luminescence filtering through the loft window, the world outside reborn in pristine white. 2 months in the wilderness had changed her in ways she was only beginning to recognize. Her body leaner and stronger, her senses more attuned to the subtle language of the forest. Perfect tracking conditions, Kade observed as they stood on the cabin porch, breath-forming clouds in the crystalline air. Time to check the snares you set yesterday. Pride warmed Lily despite the chill. She'd set those snares herself, selecting locations based on the rabbit sign she'd identified. Without Cade's assistance, the wilderness was becoming legible to her now, its patterns revealing themselves through patient observation. They moved through the transformed forest with deliberate quiet, following a route Lily had memorized. At the third snare location, Success, a snowshoe hare, its winter coat already white, caught cleanly around the neck. Quick death, Kade noted with approval. No suffering. Lily felt the complex emotion she was learning to navigate. Gratitude for the sustenance, respect for the life taken. Kade had taught her that survival required death, but never cruelty or waste. Every part of the animal would be used. Meat for food, fur for warmth, bones for tools. There's something about mushrooms near that fallen spruce, she said as they continued their rounds. The snows melted in a perfect circle. Cade's eyebrows lifted slightly. Good eye. Those are winter, chanterelles. Valuable find. They harvested the golden mushrooms together, adding them to the pouch with the hare. Lily found herself humming softly, a contentment she'd never expected to feel settling over her like the snow that dusted the pines. The peace shattered with a sound that raised the hair on her neck, a high, plaintive cry of pain echoing through the trees. Kade froze, listening. The cry came again, haunting in its desperation. "Wolf," he said, turning toward the sound without hesitation. Lily followed, her earlier confidence replaced by wariness as they moved deeper into unfamiliar territory. They found it in a small clearing, a young female wolf, its leg caught in a cruel metal trap. Blood stained the snow around it as the animal thrashed weakly, yellow eyes wild with pain and fear. When it saw them, it bared its teeth in a feeble snarl. "Illegal trap," Kade said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Not regulation, not humane." He approached slowly, removing his coat despite the cold. The wolf watched him, terror battling exhaustion in its gaze. "She needs our help," Lily whispered, surprised by the fierceness of her concern for this wild creature. "Stay back," Kade instructed, though without his usual curtness. "Approach from behind me. Let her smell you first." What followed was a masterclass in gentle strength. Kade began speaking to the wolf in a low, steady stream of words, not for meaning but for rhythm and reassurance. His movements became impossibly slow as he edged toward the wounded animal, his body language conveying neither threat nor fear. "You're safe," he murmured, though Lily wasn't sure if he spoke to the wolf or to her. "I understand your pain. I know your fear. We are not so different, you and I." The wolf's growl faded to a whimper as Kade eased his coat over its head, leaving only its muzzle exposed, a technique to calm it while protecting them from potential bites. With swift efficiency, he manipulated the trap's mechanism, freeing the wolf's mangled leg. The animal remained oddly still, as though recognizing his intent. "The leg's badly damaged," he told Lily, examining the wound with gentle fingers. "She'll die without treatment." "We can't just leave her," Lily protested. "We won't." Kade fashioned a makeshift stretcher from branches and his coat. "But this is beyond my skills." "Then whose?" "Mine, I expect," came a new voice from the tree line. Lily startled, turning to find an elderly woman watching them. Small and wiry, with silver hair in a thick braid, she carried a worn leather bag and moved with surprising agility for her apparent age. Most striking were her eyes, dark and knowing, as though they held centuries rather than decades. "Sarah," Kade acknowledged with unexpected deference, "we didn't mean to trespass." "The wounded recognize no boundaries," the woman replied, approaching without hesitation. "Nor do healers." She knelt beside the wolf, her weathered hands moving with practiced confidence over its injured leg. "This one wants to live." "Can you help her?" Lily asked. Sarah assessed her with those ancient eyes. "I can. Better question is, can you?" Before Lily could process this cryptic response, Sarah was opening her bag, revealing bundles of dried plants, small jars, and tools crafted from bone and stone. "Here," she instructed, handing Lily several leaves. "Crush these between your palms until they release their oil." What followed was an impromptu lesson in wilderness medicine. Sarah directed while Lily assisted, Kade keeping the wolf calm with his steady presence. They cleaned the wound with a pungent solution, applied a poultice of crushed herbs and pine resin, and finally wrapped the leg with birch bark and sinew. "She will need time and care," Sarah said when they'd finished. "The trap damaged tendons. She cannot return to her pack yet." "We'll build a shelter near the cabin," Kade said, surprising Lily with his immediate commitment. Sarah nodded, her attention shifting to Lily. "You have good hands. Healing hands." She spoke as if they were old acquaintances rather than new ones. "The plants spoke to you." Lily might have dismissed such talk as nonsense before, but something about the woman's certainty resonated with her own experience. She'd felt a strange connection while working with the medicines, an intuitive understanding that transcended her limited knowledge. The land knows you now, Sarah continued. It sings your name when you walk upon it. Her gaze shifted to encompass both Lily and Kade. But others walk here too, men who take without asking, who leave scars upon the earth. Marcus Reed, Kade said grimly. Sarah's expression hardened. His men set this trap, and others beyond. They hunt what is not theirs to take. She rose, gathering her bag. Watch for their signs. The wolf is but the first victim. Why help us? Lily asked, the question that had been nagging at her. You don't know me. A smile creased Sarah's face, transforming it briefly into something youthful and mischievous. Don't I? The earth speaks of those who listen. You have been expected, Lily Winters. The use of her full name sent a shiver through Lily that had nothing to do with the cold. We have much to teach each other, Sarah added, already moving away with that same surprising grace. I will return for the wolf. Until then, remember, what wounds the land wounds its children. What heals one, heals all. With that enigmatic statement, she vanished among the trees as silently as she'd appeared, leaving Lily and Kade with their injured charge and new questions. Later, as they constructed a sheltered enclosure for the wolf near the cabin, Kade spoke with unusual determination. Tomorrow we begin expanding your territory. There are places beyond our normal range you need to know. Safe havens, dangerous grounds, landmarks in case you're ever lost. He paused, considering his next words carefully. The forest has chosen you as it once chose me. That's a bond that comes with responsibility. Lily looked at the sleeping wolf, at the wilderness stretching infinitely white beyond their clearing, and felt something settle within her, a sense of purpose that had eluded her entire life. I'm ready, she said, and knew it to be true. January brought a crystalline clarity to the mountains. The thermometer outside the cabin rarely climbed above freezing, but inside, Lily moved with newfound confidence through morning routines that had once seemed alien. The wolf, whom she'd named Sage for the color of her eyes, had healed enough to be released, though she often returned to the clearing as if checking on them. We'll be gone 3 days, Kade explained as they packed, lightweight sleeping rolls and essential supplies. The northern ridge has different tracking challenges, different predators. And you think I'm ready? Lily asked, adjusting the straps on her pack, pride warming her despite the winter chill. Kade's assessment was characteristically direct. You've earned it. The compliment, sparse though it was, meant more than any praise she'd received before. 4 months in the wilderness had transformed her, stripping away pretenses and building something genuine in their place. She no longer feared the forest's vastness, but welcomed its austere beauty, finding in its rhythms a stability her previous life had lacked. They traveled efficiently, Lily instinctively matching Kade's pace and choosing secure footing through snow-covered terrain. By midday, they'd reached areas she'd never seen, more rugged, less touched by human presence. Kade used natural features to teach navigation without compass or map, showing how ridgelines, watercourses, and star patterns created a living map for those who knew how to read it. Stop, Kade whispered suddenly, crouching beside a fallen log. Look here. Lily knelt beside him, examining what first appeared to be ordinary disturbance in the snow. Looking closer, she recognized the distinctive drag pattern of something heavy being pulled. Deer carcass, she observed, but not by natural predators. Good. Kade's approval was tempered by concern. Humans, multiple boot prints. See how they've tried to obscure them? They followed the trail cautiously, movement slowing as Kade indicated the need for silence. Beyond a stand of dense pines, they discovered the evidence Sarah had warned about. A crude hunting camp littered with empty beer cans, cigarette butts, and worst of all, the remains of animals taken for trophies only. Antlers had been removed from deer whose meat was left to rot, pelts stripped from smaller creatures whose bodies were discarded without respect or purpose. This isn't hunting, Lily whispered, disgust rising in her throat. It's butchery. Kade examined cartridge casings left carelessly on the ground. These aren't local hunters. His voice carried that rare edge of emotion. This is Reed's operation moving deeper into protected areas. They documented the site carefully, Kade teaching her to memorize details that might later serve as evidence. As they prepared to move on, Lily spotted something reflecting faint sunlight half buried in snow. Another trap like the one that had caught Sage, its metal teeth waiting silently for unsuspecting prey. "We need to disable it," she said immediately. Kade nodded, showing her how to safely trigger and dismantle the mechanism. They found 3 more traps before continuing their journey, each one carefully neutralized. Late afternoon brought ominous signs. The temperature dropping rapidly, wind shifting to bring heavy clouds scudding over mountaintops with unnatural speed. "Weather's turning," Kade observed, studying the sky with concern. "We need shelter. The cabin's too far." The storm hit with startling ferocity, visibility dropping to mere feet as stinging snow drove horizontally on howling wind. Lily felt the first tendrils of fear as familiar landmarks disappeared in the whiteout, but forced herself to focus on Kade's lessons. Stay calm, conserve energy, trust your training. "This way," Kade called over the wind's howl, leading them toward a sheer rock face barely visible through the blizzard. "There's a cave system." The narrow opening was nearly invisible until they stood directly before it, a dark slash in gray stone, offering refuge from the storm's fury. Inside, the temperature rose noticeably as the cave's natural insulation sheltered them from wind. Kade produced a small emergency lantern from his pack, its light revealing a space larger than Lily had anticipated, extending deep into the mountain. "We should explore further in," Kade suggested. "Sometimes these caves have multiple entrances. Good to know escape routes." As they moved deeper, the cave walls began to reveal something unexpected. Ochre and charcoal markings, clearly deliberate, clearly ancient. Lily touched one reverently, fingers tracing the outline of a wolf rendered with striking skill. "Sarah's people," Kade explained, voice hushed in the presence of such history. This was a sacred place, a place of vision and ceremony. The paintings told stories, hunters and prey in eternal dance, figures communing with animal spirits, the seasons depicted in circular progression. One scene showed a human figure becoming a wolf, the transformation portrayed with haunting beauty. "They understood," Lily whispered, "that we're not separate from this." She gestured to encompass the wilderness beyond the cave walls. "That we're part of it." They made camp in a smooth-floored chamber, building a small, efficient fire from their emergency supplies. The storm's voice echoed distantly from the entrance, but here they were safe, surrounded by the silent witness of ancient art. Time seemed to slow, the modern world falling away as they shared food and firelight, just as humans had done in this same space centuries before. "I was married once," Kade said suddenly, breaking a comfortable silence. His voice held a quality Lily had never heard before, raw, unguarded. "Her name was Elena. Our daughter was Sophia." Lily remained perfectly still, afraid any movement might interrupt this unprecedented sharing. 8 years ago, they were driving home from Sophia's ballet recital. Drunk driver crossed the center line. The firelight caught the moisture in his eyes. They died instantly. I was overseas. Special Forces mission. Didn't even make it back for the funeral. "I'm so sorry," Lily whispered, the inadequacy of words painfully apparent. "I hunted him down. The driver. Found him at a bar 6 months later." Kade's hands, always so steady, trembled slightly. "Had my hands around his throat. Could have ended him without a second thought." "What stopped you?" Elena's voice in my head, telling me Sophia wouldn't recognize what I'd become. He looked up at the cave paintings, at the human wolf transformation. So I came here instead. Let the wilderness scour me clean. Or try to. The confession hung between them, profound in its trust. Lily found herself speaking of things she'd buried deep. The foster father who'd come to her room at night until she learned to barricade the door. The foster mother who'd burned her clothes as punishment for imagined offenses. The social worker who'd suggested her attitude problem was why no one wanted her. The night before I tried stealing food from Nels, I'd decided to end it. Lily admitted, the words emerging from some deep, hidden place. I was just looking for one good meal first. That's how pathetic it was. My last request was a protein bar. Kade reached across the space between them, his calloused hand covering hers. The wilderness found us both when we needed it most. They slept side by side that night, the ancient paintings standing sentinel in the lantern's fading glow. Something fundamental had shifted between them, the careful distance of mentor and student giving way to something more primal and true. Not father and daughter by blood, but perhaps something equally binding, survivors who recognized in each other both strength and brokenness, who chose to protect rather than exploit that knowledge. The storm abated by morning, leaving a transformed landscape of pristine drifts and ice-jeweled trees. Their return journey to the cabin was made in companionable silence, each processing the night's revelations in their own way. As they crested the final ridge overlooking their clearing, Kade stopped abruptly, keen eyes focused on the distant tree line. There, he said quietly, pointing to a flicker of movement on a far slope. Someone's watching. The sun caught the distinctive glint of binocular lenses as a figure in bright orange gear tracked their progress from the ridgeline. Reed's men? Lily asked, tension returning to her shoulders. Kade studied the distant watcher with narrowed eyes. No, different posture, different equipment. He shouldered his pack, but still an intrusion, and potentially dangerous. The figure remained in place as they descended toward the cabin, the weight of unseen eyes a reminder that their sanctuary was not as isolated as it once had been. The spring thaw came suddenly that year, as if winter had finally exhausted its patience and surrendered all at once. Snow retreated up the mountainsides, leaving behind a riot of new growth, trillium and glacier lily pushing through damp earth, birdsong returning to forest canopies, streams swollen with meltwater. Lily had flourished through the winter months, her connection to the land deepening with each passing day. The cabin felt like home now, Kade's presence familiar as her own. Heartbeat! The intruder arrived on a misty April morning. They heard the approach first, movement too deliberate to be animal, too cautious to be threatening. Kade motioned Lily to position as they'd practiced, his rifle appearing in his hands with fluid grace. When the figure emerged from the trees, young, Asian, weighted down with camera equipment and dressed in expensive but impractical outdoor gear, Kade's posture remained rigidly alert. "This is private property," he called out, voice carrying the edge Lily recognized as protective rather than hostile. The stranger froze, hands instinctively rising. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize anyone lived out here." Despite obvious fear, curiosity sparked in intelligent eyes. "I'm tracking a mountain lion that's been spotted in this region, a melanistic one, incredibly rare." "You're trespassing," Kade stated flatly. "I know. I'm sorry. I'm Jamie Chen." The words tumbled out nervously. "Wildlife photographer. National Geographic sometimes. I've been camping over by Silver Creek for 2 weeks trying to document endangered species in this ecosystem before—" Jamie hesitated. "Before what?" Lily asked, stepping forward. "Before the proposed development changes everything." Jamie's gaze darted between them, assessing. "You really don't know?" That first tense encounter evolved into an uneasy truce over strong pine needle tea. Jamie's satellite phone provided news they'd been isolated from, a luxury resort development, planned for the valley's eastern edge, land use hearings scheduled for summer, conservation groups rallying opposition. The man behind it stays under the radar, Jamie explained, pulling out a tablet and swiping through images. But my research suggests he's using the development as cover for other activities. The screen displayed night vision images of men, loading crates into unmarked trucks, close-ups of rare animal pelts, documents partially visible on clipboard. And then, Marcus Reed, unmistakable in his ranger jacket, overseeing the operation. Kade's expression darkened as he recognized poaching on a scale far beyond what they'd discovered. "You have evidence." "Some," Jamie admitted. "Not enough. I need the Black Lion. It would become a symbol, rally public support for protecting this entire ecosystem." By evening, Kade's initial hostility had given way to strategic interest. Jamie would stay the night, return to a base camp the following day. The photographer's genuine passion for conservation proved a bridge across their differences, though Kade remained guarded about personal details. For Lily, Jamie's presence was both disruption and fascination. Here was someone near her age who moved confidently between worlds, wilderness and civilization, isolation and connection. As they prepared a simple dinner, Jamie's stories painted glimpses of a life Lily had never considered possible. "My parents wanted me to become a doctor. Or lawyer," Jamie explained, helping Lily clean mushrooms. "First-generation immigrants, you know. When I told them I was majoring in environmental science and photography, my dad didn't speak to me for a year." A pause, vulnerability showing through confidence. "Still doesn't, really." "But you found your path anyway," Lily observed. "Found it, fought for it, still fighting." Jamie smiled. There are ways to bridge different worlds without abandoning either one completely. Later, as Kade taught their visitor basic fire-starting techniques, Lily found herself studying Jamie with new eyes. The photographer's clothes were technical and expensive, yet worn with the casual disregard of someone who valued function over appearance. The numerous scars on Jamie's hands spoke of dedication, injuries earned in pursuit of the perfect image. "You're good at this," Jamie commented later, when Lily demonstrated tracking techniques she'd mastered over the winter. "Have you thought about what you want to do with these skills?" The question landed like a stone in still water, ripples disturbing Lily's carefully constructed peace. What did she want? The wilderness had saved her, healed her, but was it to be her entire future? "I belong here," she said, though uncertainty colored her voice. "Belonging isn't always about one place," Jamie replied. "Sometimes it's about purpose that spans many places." Their visit to Nell's store 3 days later revealed tensions previously invisible. The parking lot held more vehicles than Lily had ever seen there, many bearing logos of construction companies and resource assessment firms. Inside, locals huddled in concerned groups while strangers in business attire examined maps spread across Nell's usually quiet coffee corner. "The vultures are circling," Nell muttered as she filled their supply order. "Progress, they call it, as if concrete and golf courses improve upon what took nature millennia to perfect." "Has Reed been around?" Kade asked quietly. "Constantly, bringing potential investors through, presenting himself as the local expert." Nell's voice dropped. Further, "He's been asking about you two as well, particularly interested in your young friend here." "Why me?" Lily's skin prickled with unease. "Claims he's concerned about welfare issues. Young person living off-grid with no formal guardian." Nell's skepticism was evident. "I told him to mind his own business, but he's got the ear of the county commissioner these days." They were loading supplies when a gleaming SUV pulled into the lot, Marcus Reed emerging from the driver's side. His confident stride faltered momentarily when he spotted their group, recognition flashing across his features as he noted Jamie's presence. He recovered quickly, approach becoming deliberately casual. "Sullivan, Miss Winters." His acknowledgement included a nod to Jamie that carried unmistakable assessment. Expanding your little mountain family, I see. Just passing through, Jamie replied with forced lightness. Documenting wildlife. Fascinating work. Reed's smile never reached his eyes. I'd love to know what species you've captured on film. Perhaps we could compare notes sometime. The threat beneath the invitation hung in the air between them. We need to get back, Kade interrupted, his body positioning subtly protective. Reed's gaze lingered on Lily. Of course, though Miss Winters might enjoy some time in civilization occasionally, all work and no play, as they say. The journey home was weighted with new awareness. Jamie's presence had breached the careful isolation of their existence, bringing with it both opportunity and risk. That evening, as they pored over maps identifying potential poaching sites, Lily found herself torn between conflicting loyalties. To the wilderness that had saved her, to Kade who had become family, and to possibilities Jamie's world represented. I'll need to leave tomorrow, Jamie announced reluctantly. Editors expecting initial images, and I need to recharge equipment. You'll come back? Lily asked, surprising herself with how much she wanted confirmation. Definitely. This story is just beginning. Jamie hesitated. You could come with me for a few days. See what options exist beyond. No, Kade interjected, then softened his tone. Not yet. It's not safe with Reed watching so closely. The decision was postponed when dawn brought disturbing discoveries, fresh ATV tracks cutting across pristine meadows, survey stakes driven into ground near sacred sites Sarah had shown them, shell casings matching those from Reed's operations scattered near a spring. They're pushing into Sarah's territory, Lily realized with sudden clarity. This isn't just about development or even poaching. It's about erasing what was here before. As Jamie prepared to depart with promises to return, loaded with covertly taken evidence, the distant sound of machinery echoed across the valley. The first tangible intrusion of the world they'd kept at bay. We have choices to make, Kade said quietly, watching Jamie disappear down the trail. Whether to retreat, deeper into the wilderness, or stand our ground. Lily thought of Sarah's teachings, of ancient cave paintings, of the wolf they had saved, of Jamie's bridge between worlds, of Kade's hard-won peace. Not choices, she corrected gently. Responsibilities. Early summer painted the wilderness. In vibrant hues, wildflowers carpeting meadows, aspens shimmering with new leaves, days stretching long and golden. But beauty could not mask the growing threat. For 3 weeks since Jamie's departure, Lily and Kade had maintained meticulous surveillance of Reed's operation, documenting each incursion into protected land with techniques Jamie had taught them. Hold your breath when you press the shutter, Lily instructed, steadying the camera Jamie had left behind. They lay belly down on a ridge overlooking a hidden valley where Reed's men had established a processing camp. From this distance, the distinctive pelts of Wolverine and Fisher, both endangered, were clearly visible, being prepared for transport. Kade nodded appreciatively at the clarity of her images. You've become a natural. I've had good teachers, she replied, warmed by his acknowledgement. The months in the wilderness had transformed her from desperate runaway to confident defender. Her body had grown lean and strong, her senses sharp, her spirit connected to the land in ways she'd never imagined possible in her previous life. We need to show these to Sarah, Kade said, studying the camp layout. That canyon they're working in is one she specifically warned about. Sarah Blackfeather's summer camp occupied a hidden meadow beside a spring-fed pool, her simple canvas, shelter nearly invisible among surrounding pines. The elder was grinding roots with a stone mortar when they arrived, seemingly unsurprised by their visit. The land told me you were coming, she greeted them, setting aside her work. It speaks your names more clearly each day. Lily spread their photos on a woven mat, explaining what they'd documented. Sarah's weathered face grew solemn as she examined the images. This ridge, she said, pointing to a formation visible in several photos, holds the oldest paintings in our territory. Stories carved before my grandfather's grandfather walked these mountains. Her finger traced the line of hills. And here, this valley contains plants found nowhere else. Medicine. Plants that heal wounds, no doctor's drugs can touch. They're focusing on these areas specifically, Kade observed. Not random poaching. Sarah nodded grimly. They seek to wound the land so deeply it cannot recover. When sacred places are destroyed, it becomes easier to justify developing what remains. She turned to Lily with unnerving directness. You feel it now, don't you? The pain of the earth as if it were your own. Lily nodded, unable to deny the visceral connection that had grown within her. The destruction she'd witnessed felt like physical blows, each clear-cut and poached animal a personal injury. You have become Anaquad, Sarah said softly. Cloud woman, who moves between worlds, seeing clearly what others cannot. Her gaze included Kade. Just as he became Gagagedinagan, shadow hunter, one who walks unseen but watches always. The use of these names seemed to formalize something Lily had felt building, a responsibility that transcended personal safety or comfort. What can we do? She asked simply. What you are already doing, Sarah replied. Bear witness, prepare evidence, but be cautious. The man Reed carries darkness older and deeper than you know. They encountered Reed 3 days later while documenting illegal traps along a protected stream. The confrontation came without warning. One moment documenting evidence, the next surrounded by Reed and 3 men emerging from concealed positions. Well, Reed's voice carried false congeniality. The reclusive Kade Sullivan and his protege caught trespassing on private development land. This is federal wilderness, Kade stated flatly, not private property. Boundary disputes are so tedious, Reed sighed, gesturing toward their camera. More interesting is your sudden interest in photography. His smile hardened. Hand it over, Sullivan. No. Lily stepped forward, surprising both men. We know what you're doing. Poaching endangered species? Destroying sacred sites? Sacred? Reed laughed. Superstitious nonsense. This land has one purpose: resource extraction. The development is just a convenient cover story. His attention returned to Kade, something personal darkening his expression. Though I admit, finding you here was an unexpected bonus. The great wildlife biologist Kade Sullivan, reduced to playing mountain man with a teenage runaway. Kade's face remained impassive, but Lily sensed his tension. You don't remember me, do you? Reed continued. I was a graduate student when you led the conservation assessment that blocked my father's mining operation, cost him everything. His smile disappeared completely. He drank himself to death within a year. I remember the assessment, Kade replied evenly. It was scientifically sound. It was a hatchet job. Reed's composure cracked momentarily before he regained control. But that's ancient history. I have different priorities now, like ensuring my business partners receive the specialty products they've paid for. He gestured toward his men. The black market for endangered species parts is surprisingly lucrative, particularly in certain Asian markets. You won't get away with this, Lily said, hand tightening on the camera. But I already am. Reed's confidence was chilling. The county commissioner, Forest Service regional director, even the state conservation officer, all have received generous contributions to their retirement funds. No one's coming to help you. The standoff broke only when distant voices signaled the approach of a hiking group, forcing Reed and his men to withdraw with a final warning. This is your only free pass. Next time we catch you documenting anything, there won't be a conversation. He recognized you, Nell said when they related the confrontation during their supply run. That complicates things considerably. It makes it personal, Lily agreed, helping stack provisions. His operation isn't just about money, it's revenge against Kade. Nell lowered her voice. Word is Reed's bringing in heavy equipment next. Week, starting road construction to the eco-resort that's just a front for more poaching access. We need to move faster, Lily insisted, turning to Kade. Before they destroy everything. Cade's struggle was evident in his face, the duty. To protect the wilderness he loved warring with his fear for Lily's safety. Reed's dangerous. He won't hesitate to eliminate threats permanently. The store's bell jingled, announcing Jamie's return, laden with equipment and vibrating with excitement. I pitched the story, Jamie announced once they had privacy. Editor. Went crazy for the Black Lion angle and the indigenous sacred sites. They want a full environmental crime expose. The photographer lowered a heavy bag to the floor. Brought better cameras, satellite uplink, everything we need to document what's happening in real time. What's the timeline? Kade asked, his reluctance giving way to recognition of necessity. 3 days of intensive documentation, then we go public with everything at once. Photos, GPS coordinates, identified species. Conservation groups are ready to file emergency injunctions. Lily felt the weight of decision settling over them. If we do this, there's no going back. Reed will know exactly who exposed him. He already does, Kade said quietly. The question is whether we can gather enough evidence before he acts on that knowledge. Later, as they hiked home beneath a sky bruised with approaching storm clouds, Lily sensed Cade's continued concern. I can't ask you to risk yourself, he finally said. You have a future beyond these mountains. Lily stopped, turning to face the man who had become more family to her than any since her parents. This is my home, she said simply. These mountains, that cabin, this fight. It's who I am now. Who we are. Something shifted in Cade's expression, a recognition that the girl he'd reluctantly sheltered had become a woman capable of her own choices. Then we do this together, he said, but we prepare for Reed's reaction. It won't be subtle. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a fitting accompaniment to the storm they were deliberately walking into. By choosing to fight rather than retreat, they had placed themselves directly in Reed's crosshairs, with only truth and determination as shields against whatever violence would surely come. The new moon cast perfect darkness over the valley, ideal conditions for their nighttime surveillance. 3 days of methodical documentation had yielded devastating evidence. Rare animal parts being prepared for black market shipment, sacred sites deliberately desecrated, industrial chemicals dumped in pristine streams. Tonight would complete their case against Reed, focusing on the main processing camp Jamie's satellite imaging had identified. Remember, Kade whispered as they crouched among dense pines overlooking the camp. Photos only. No risks. His breath formed faint clouds in the unseasonably cold June air. 2 hours. Then we extract regardless of what we've captured. Lily nodded, adjusting the night vision attachment Jamie had provided. She'd grown accustomed to the forest at night, learning to move through darkness with confidence that would have been unimaginable months ago. Her stomach knotted with tension, but her hands remained steady on the camera. I'll circle west, Kade continued, checking his watch. You maintain position here. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, retreat to rendezvous point 3. Understood. Lily forced certainty into her voice despite her unease. Something felt different tonight. The forest too quiet, the camp below too orderly. They, separated with practiced efficiency, Kade melting into the darkness with the silent grace that had earned him his nickname. Lily focused on her assignment, documenting the crates being loaded with illegal wildlife parts, capturing clear images of faces and vehicle identification. For 40 minutes, everything proceeded according to plan. The first indication of trouble came as a subtle shift in the camp's rhythm. Guards changing position without apparent reason, flashlight beams probing the surrounding forest edge. Lily tensed, thumb hovering over the camera's memory card eject button as she'd been instructed in case of discovery. The radio crackle from directly behind her came without warning. Northwest position confirmed. Moving in. Lily spun to find herself illuminated in blinding light, the silhouette of a man with a radio barely visible beyond the glare. She reacted instinctively, executing the evasion maneuver Kade had drilled into her, striking the light source while diving sideways into cover, then rolling to her feet and running perpendicular to her original position. "Contact fleeing north!" the voice shouted as she crashed through underbrush, abandoning stealth for speed. The forest erupted with activity, shouts, flashlight beams, slashing through darkness, the crash of pursuers through vegetation. Lily channeled her fear into focused motion, using terrain features as Kade had taught her, a dry creek bed providing momentary concealment, a fallen log creating an obstacle. For pursuers, a dense thicket offering passage only to someone of her size. 3 gunshots cracked the night's silence, followed by a man's pain-filled shout from the direction Kade had gone. Lily's heart seized. The rendezvous points were compromised. She needed to find Kade immediately. Doubling back through a ravine, she circled toward the western slope where Kade had positioned himself. The pursuit seemed focused elsewhere now, allowing her to move more cautiously. She found him collapsed against a boulder, one hand pressed to his side, dark wetness spreading between his fingers. "Kade," she whispered urgently, dropping beside him. "Ambush," he managed through gritted teeth. "They knew. We were coming." "How bad?" He moved his hand briefly, revealing a wound pumping blood at an alarming rate. "Through and through, but hit something. Important." Training overcame panic as Lily quickly applied pressure, using the bandana from her neck as an initial. "Compress. We need to move. Can you stand?" Kade attempted to rise but collapsed against her, his normally formidable strength failing. "You go," he insisted. "Rendezvous with Jamie. Get the evidence out." "Not without you." The words emerged with absolute certainty. "I'm getting you to Sarah." Working swiftly, Lily removed her thermal shirt, using it to bind the wound tightly, enough to slow bleeding while still allowing movement. She supported Kade as they began a halting retreat, each step drawing a suppressed groan despite his stoic efforts. They managed a quarter mile before his legs gave out completely. Lily helped him into a hollow beneath a fallen cedar, its massive root structure creating a natural shelter nearly invisible in the darkness. Distantly, voices and flashlights indicated the search continuing, though less organized now, spreading thin across too much territory. Kade's skin burned with alarming heat when she touched his forehead. "Need to keep moving," he mumbled, eyes unfocused. "Rest first," Lily insisted, gathering specific moss she recognized from Sarah's teachings, the kind that slowed bleeding and fought infection. She packed it gently against the wound, whispering the preparation words Sarah had taught her, feeling the plants respond to her intention as the old woman had promised they would. "Sophia?" Kade's voice had changed, confusion softening its edges as fever took stronger hold. "You shouldn't be up, Butterfly. It's late." Lily froze, recognition washing through her. Sophia, his daughter's name. "Dad's here," he continued, hand weakly reaching for hers. "You're safe now." Tears threatened, but Lily blinked them away. Now was not the time for emotion. "Yes," she whispered. "I'm safe because of you. But we need to rest a little while." He settled at her reassurance, drifting into uneasy unconsciousness. Lily used the opportunity to scout their immediate surroundings, gathering sturdy branches and vines. By first light, she had constructed a rough travois, a rescue technique Sarah had demonstrated after the wolf's injury. Kade regained partial lucidity as she secured him to the improvised transport. "You can't drag me through this terrain." he protested weakly. Watch me, Lily replied with determined calm, threading the pulling harness across her shoulders. The journey that followed tested everything she had learned. She chose paths of least resistance, using natural features to conceal their trail, while making steady progress toward Sarah's summer grounds. Twice she detected pursuers and created false trails leading in opposite directions, breaking branches, disturbing ground cover, even leaving a droplet of Kade's blood on a misleading track. By midday, Kade's condition had deteriorated further, his breathing shallow and skin gray beneath his tan. When they reached a stream crossing, Lily used the opportunity to reconsider their options. Sarah's camp was still half a day's journey, at their current pace. Too long given Kade's worsening state. I'm sorry, she told him, wiping his fevered brow with cool water. I need to leave you hidden and go for help. No, he managed, eyes focusing momentarily with surprising clarity. Too dangerous. Alone. I'm not alone, Lily assured him, suddenly understanding a truth Sarah had tried to teach her. The forest is with me now, just like it's always been with you. She created a sheltered hollow beneath a rock overhang, using every skill of concealment Kade had taught her. After making him as comfortable as possible, she placed his knife in his hand and the emergency satellite beacon Jamie had given them beside him. If I'm not back with help by sunset, activate this, she instructed. But I will be back, I promise. As she prepared to leave, Kade caught her wrist with surprising strength. Lily, he said, her actual name a sign of his temporary clarity. You've become everything I could have hoped for in a daughter. The words pierced her heart, but she transformed the emotion into resolve. Then trust your daughter to save you this time. She moved with newfound certainty through the wilderness, no longer the desperate girl who had once stumbled lost among these same trees. The forest spoke to her now as it did to Kade and Sarah, revealing paths and possibilities invisible to untrained eyes. Behind her, she knew Reed's men continued their hunt. Ahead lay Sarah's wisdom and healing. Between them stood Lily, no longer merely surviving but defending what had become precious beyond measure. Her family, her home, her true self. Hold him still, Sarah instructed, her weathered hands crushing juniper berries into a pungent paste. 3 days had passed since Lily had found her way to the elder's hidden dwelling, half carrying a delirious Kade for the final stretch. The fever fights the medicine. Lily pressed her palm against Kade's shoulder, steadying him as Sarah applied the poultice to his wound. Though the bleeding had stopped, infection threatened, his skin burning with unnatural heat. Good, Sarah nodded as the mixture drew a yellow discharge from the wound. The plants are calling out the poison. She guided Lily's hands to replace her own. Now you. They know your touch now. Lily felt the strange warmth beneath her fingers as she pressed the medicine into place, sensing the plants responding as Sarah had taught her, living entities choosing to help rather than merely being used. The bullet damaged his spirit path as well as his body, Sarah explained, preparing a tea of bitter-smelling roots. Some wounds can't be seen. Will he recover? Lily asked, the question she'd been afraid to voice since their arrival. Sarah studied her with those ancient eyes that seemed to see beyond the present moment. That depends on you, Anaquad. On what you become in the days ahead. Before Lily could question this cryptic response, the low buzz of Jamie's satellite phone announced the photographer's approach. Jamie appeared moments later, laden with equipment and supplies, face etched with worried determination. I got everything, Jamie confirmed breathlessly, lowering the heavy packs. Medical supplies, cameras, GPS trackers. The editor's going wild with what we've sent already, but we need more. Proof of Reed's direct involvement. Reed isn't just involved, Lily said grimly. He tried to kill Kade. Jamie's expression hardened. Then we document that too. Turn attempted murder charges alongside environmental crimes. Night found them gathered around Sarah's small fire, developing a strategy unlike anything Lily would have imagined herself capable of months earlier. Jamie provided intelligence, Reed's operation thrown into disarray by their escape, his buyers growing impatient, his political protection wavering as rumors spread. He's vulnerable, Jamie observed, but desperate. Most dangerous combination. The forest will help us, Sarah added, her gnarled finger tracing a map of the territory. It remembers those who harm it. Lily absorbed their insights silently, a plan forming with crystal clarity. She would not confront Reed's operation directly. She would dismantle it piece by piece, using the wilderness itself as her ally. "I'll need 3 days," she finally said. "And everything you've brought, Jamie." Dawn found Lily moving silently. Through mist-shrouded forest, her body painted with earth tones Sarah had prepared, rendering her nearly invisible among dappled shadows. She carried little, Jamie's best camera, small GPS trackers, and tools for what lay ahead. At the first poaching station, she moved like a ghost, employing the techniques Kade had perfected. Become nothing, he had taught her. No separation. Between yourself and the forest. No impact, no intention they can sense. She planted a tracker inside a crate of illegal pelts, photographed the site from multiple angles, then executed the first disruption, subtly altering trail markers the poachers used to navigate between stations. Not removing them entirely, but changing their meaning in ways only someone intimate with the forest would notice. By midday, she had documented 3 operations and sowed confusion at each, redirecting water flow to flood access paths, transplanting poison ivy to strategic locations, removing crucial equipment parts and redistributing them in nonsensical places. "The forest remembers," Sarah had told her. Now, Lily helped it respond. On the second day, she intercepted 2 poachers, following her manipulated markers, observing from perfect concealment as they found themselves in a bog that seemed solid until walked upon. Their panicked floundering as they extracted themselves from waist-deep mud might have been comical under different circumstances. "Something weird's happening out there," one complained into his radio. "Jackson and Mercer still haven't reported in from the western site." Lily smiled grimly. Jackson and Mercer had spent a thoroughly uncomfortable night in a ravine after following her carefully broken trail to a dead end with no easy climb out. By the 3rd day, Reed's operation was fracturing, men refusing to venture into what they now called haunted territory, equipment failing mysteriously, supplies vanishing. When Jamie met Lily at their rendezvous point, the photographer's eyes widened at the transformation before them. "You've become him," Jamie whispered. "The shadow." "No," Lily corrected, wiping stealth pigment from her face. "I've become myself." The final confrontation came at sunset, exactly where Sarah had predicted. The sacred falls where water had carved through stone for millennia, creating a natural cathedral of mist and rainbow light. Reed stood at the cliff edge, his composed facade finally shattered as he surveyed the remnants of his operation. When Lily emerged from the forest shadows, his hand moved reflexively toward his weapon. "It's over, Reed," she said with quiet authority. "Everything's documented. Your men are scattered. Your buyers have backed out." "One teenage girl," he snarled, disbelief contorting his features. "You expect me to believe you did all this?" "Not alone," Lily replied, sensing rather than seeing Jamie moving into position with cameras recording. "The forest defended itself. I just helped it speak." Reed's laugh held an edge of hysteria. "Mystical nonsense. Sullivan filled your head with his environmental extremism." "Speaking of Kade," Lily continued steadily, "attempted murder charges add significant prison time. The bullet they removed matched your registered handgun." For a moment, something like fear flickered across Reed's face. "You have no proof I fired it." "Actually, we do," Jamie emerged from cover, camera focused. "I've been recording everything you've said, including that admission that it was your gun." Reed's composure crumbled completely. His hand drew his weapon with desperate speed, alternating aim between them. "You've ruined everything. Years of work, millions in contracts. The same way your father was ruined?" Lily asked softly. "Is that why Kade had to die? Because he once stood for the truth, just as we're doing now?" Something in her quiet certainty seemed to reach Reed. His hand wavered, the gun suddenly absurd and ineffectual against what she represented. "You could shoot us both," Lily continued, taking a careful step forward. "But the evidence is already transferring to editors and authorities. The wilderness has already spoken." The moment balanced on a knife's edge, violence hovering as possible but increasingly pointless. Then, with startling suddenness, Reed's shoulders slumped, the fight draining visibly from his body. "It was never supposed to go this far," he muttered, the gun lowering slightly. "Just business until Sullivan appeared. A ghost from the past." Distant voices announced the approach of others. Forest Service rangers Jamie had contacted through satellite phone, conservation officers from outside the county, beyond Reed's influence. Lily could have ended it there, stepped back, and let justice take its course. But something in Reed's defeated posture compelled her forward instead. She reached out slowly, giving him opportunity to resist, and took the gun from his unresisting hand. "Choose a better way," she said quietly, like Kade did after his loss. As authorities led Reed away, Jamie approached Lily with wonder. "You could have let him fall," the photographer observed, nodding toward the cliff edge where Reed had stood. "After what he did to Kade." "Then I would have become what he is," Lily replied, watching sunset paint the sacred waters gold and crimson. "The forest doesn't seek vengeance, only balance." That night, returning to Sarah's dwelling, they found Kade sitting upright for the first time, his eyes clear though his body remained weak. "I felt it," he said when Lily described what had transpired. "The forest moving through you." His hand reached for hers. "You've become something I never imagined." Sarah, observing them with those fathomless eyes, nodded once in solemn acknowledgement. "Anaquad has found her true name," she pronounced. "The clouds have parted to reveal the stars." The headline in the Sunday edition read, "Wildlife Trafficking. Ring exposed in Pacific Northwest." Below it, Jamie's breathtaking photograph showed a mountain lion, coal black against pale stone, its rare melanistic form captured with perfect clarity. Lily studied the paper spread across Nell's counter, still adjusting to the surreal feeling of seeing events she'd lived through transformed into national news. "Never thought I'd see the day," Nell mused, refilling Lily's coffee cup. Reed's family had their fingers in every pocket around here for generations. Untouchable, they thought. 2 months had passed since Reed's arrest. Summer was reaching its peak, the mountains lush with life, the forest thriving under renewed protection. The poaching network had collapsed, former conspirators turning on each other for reduced sentences. Most satisfying was the designation of Sarah's territories as protected indigenous cultural sites permanently safeguarded from development. "How's our patient?" Nell asked, nodding toward the window where Kade sat on the store's porch, his conversation with a Forest Service ranger animated in a way Lily would never have imagined possible when she first met him. "Stronger every day," Lily replied. "Still, favors his left side, but Sarah says the deep healing takes time." Kade's recovery had been gradual, his body mending more readily than the psychological wound of having been unable to protect Lily. Only when he understood that their roles had evolved, not reversed, but balanced, had his true healing begun. "And you?" Nell's shrewd eyes assessed Lily with the same penetrating gaze that had seen through her shoplifting attempt nearly a year ago. "Jamie mentioned National Geographic offered you a position as a guide for their environmental photojournalists." Lily nodded, the opportunity still turning over in her mind. Good money, interesting work, chance to see other wild places. But not your wild place, Nell observed gently. No, Lily admitted. Not my home. The word emerged naturally now, no longer foreign or tentative. Home. Not the cabin specifically, but the wilderness it stood within, the relationships she'd formed there, the person she'd become among those trees and mountains. I knew it the moment I saw you two together, Nell said, surprising Lily with her change of subject. That day you tried to steal that protein bar when I introduced you to Kade. Somehow I knew you were exactly what he needed. I was desperate and starving, Lily reminded her with a wry smile. Hardly anyone's idea of a solution. Sometimes broken pieces fit together in ways whole ones can't, Nell replied, her weathered hand covering Lily's briefly. You brought him back to life as surely as he saved yours. Outside, Kade rose carefully from his chair, shaking the ranger's hand in farewell. His movements were more measured now, the bullet having taken something of his physical invincibility. But it had given something in return, a new openness, as if near death had finally released him from the prison of his grief. We should head back, he said as he entered, the words carrying none of the gruff reluctance that once characterized his interactions in town. Sarah's expecting us before sundown. The ceremonial fire cast golden light across the gathering in Sarah's meadow as twilight deepened toward true dark. Jamie sat cross-legged beside Nell, both witnesses to something few outsiders ever observed, a recognition ceremony as old as the mountains themselves. Sarah moved with the dignified grace of her position, her voice strong despite her years, as she spoke in her native language before translating for all to understand. Since time beyond memory, these mountains have chosen their guardians, she intoned, placing fragrant cedar on the flames. Not through blood alone, but through hearts. Recognition and spirits calling. Lily knelt before the elder, dressed in a simple deerskin tunic Sarah had prepared, her hair adorned with eagle feathers and sprigs of sacred plants. Anaquad came to us a stranger, born of another world, Sarah continued. But the land knew her. The forest claimed her. The mountains shaped her. She placed her hands on Lily's shoulders. Today, we acknowledge what has already been decided by powers older than our understanding. The ceremony continued with songs Lily had been taught over the preceding weeks, melodies that seemed to emerge from the earth itself, harmonizing, with cricket song and wind through pine needles. When Sarah finally placed a medicine pouch around Lily's neck, the simple leather containing sacred substances known only to them, something settled within her, a certainty beyond words or rational thought. The knowledge passes, Sarah concluded, her eyes reflecting firelight as they met Lily's. The protection continues. Later, as they walked the moonlit path toward home, Kade's hand found Lily's with uncharacteristic demonstrativeness. When I found you at Nell's, he said quietly, I was still half dead inside, breathing and moving, but not living. We saved each other, Lily acknowledged, the truth of it simple and profound. More than that, he continued, choosing his words carefully. We became family. Not a replacement for what either of us lost, but something new, something chosen. The word lingered between them, chosen. How different from her years in foster care, where she had been perpetually unchosen, unwanted. How different from Kade's self-imposed exile, his rejection of human connection after losing those he loved. I've been thinking, Kade said as they approached the cabin clearing. That place is too small for both of us now. For one disorienting moment, Lily feared he was suggesting they separate. Then he gestured toward a stack of freshly cut logs on the edge of the clearing. You need your own space, he explained. Connected to mine, but yours entirely, if you want to stay. The simple question contained worlds of meaning, acknowledgement of her adulthood, respect for her independence, hope for continued connection. "I want to stay," she said simply. Autumn painted the mountains in fire colors once more as the adjoining cabin took shape. Jamie visited regularly, bringing supplies and news of the outside world, documenting the changing seasons and the thriving wildlife. Nell coordinated volunteers from town, many who had once viewed Kade with suspicion, now eager to help the man whose courage had protected their shared wilderness. On the day the final roof beam was placed, Sarah arrived unexpectedly, bringing seeds for Lily to plant around her new dwelling, plants for medicine, for food, for relationship with the land. "The circle widens," the elder observed, watching the gathered community share a meal in the clearing. "One becomes, two becomes many. This is how healing spreads." 1 year from the day she'd first stumbled into Nell's store, desperate and alone, Lily stood at the forest edge facing a group of teenagers. Their expressions ranged from sullen to skeptical, their bodies broadcasting the same defensive wariness she once wore like armor. "I know what you're thinking," she began, recognizing herself in their wary eyes. "That this is some nature therapy bullshit that can't possibly help with real problems." A few surprised smiles flickered across guarded faces. "A year ago, I was homeless, abused by the system, ready to end it all." She gestured toward the wilderness behind her. "Then I met someone who showed me a different way to live. Not easier. Definitely not simpler. But real in a way nothing had ever been." She demonstrated fire-starting techniques, watching closely as each teen attempted the process. Some grew frustrated. Others persisted with surprising determination. One girl, perhaps 16 with haunted eyes that had seen too much, produced a flame on her second try, her face transformed by momentary wonder. From the cabin porch, Kade watched with quiet pride, his own journey from isolation to community reflected in Lily's work. Beside him, Jamie documented this new chapter while Sarah nodded in ancient approval of continuity preserved. As the day ended and the teens prepared to return to town, the first of many visits through the program Lily had established with Nell's help, the girl with haunted eyes lingered. "Is it true you can talk to wolves?" she asked, the question both skeptical and hopeful. Lily smiled, remembering her own first lessons in becoming silent, in listening beyond human language. "Not exactly," she answered, "but I can teach you how to listen when the forest speaks." The sun dipped behind mountain peaks as Lily walked the path home. Not the desperate girl who had once stumbled upon a cabin in the wilderness, nor simply the student who had learned its ways, but a woman fully realized in her purpose. Behind her, the lessons she'd been given. Before her, the sharing of those gifts with others who needed them as desperately as she once had. The forest whispered welcome as shadows lengthened and lights appeared in twin cabin windows, guiding her home. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.